For, wow, over 100 years, the K-12 textbook has been this unshakable fixture in the American classroom. You know what I'm talking about. But today, that whole industry, which is dominated by just 3 giant publishers, is facing a massive, massive crisis. So how are these giants fighting to stay relevant? Let's dive in and break down their battle plans.
You know, this quote from a superintendent out in Arizona, Calvin Baker, it just says everything, doesn't it? He says we are not beholden at all to the big textbook publishers. His district and a whole lot of others are basically leading a rebellion. They're swapping out these expensive, static textbooks for digital content that's way more flexible and dynamic. The message here is crystal clear. The old way of doing things is officially over.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at this new playlist model for curriculum that's shaking everything up. Then, we're going to break down the totally unique strategies of the big 3. That's Pearson, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and McGraw-Hill. And finally, we'll get to the most important part. What do the actual educators on the ground really want?
Okay, so what is this new model that has these publishing giants so spooked? Well, it's a huge shift away from that one, single, all-powerful textbook and towards something a lot more like a playlist.
I mean, think about how you listen to music, right? You don't buy a whole album just for one song anymore. No way. You build a playlist. And that is exactly what the Vail School District is doing. They're pulling the best digital resources from all over the place, videos, articles, open source stuff, and they're building their own custom curriculum from scratch.
Yeah, this image really nails it. We are moving from the single, bound book to this huge explosion of interactive digital content. And look, this isn't just happening in one little district. It is a nationwide trend, and it's forcing an entire industry to rethink a business model that has worked for generations.
And it's not just a bottom-up thing from teachers. State governments are flooring the accelerator here. I mean, when a state like Florida mandates that half of all the money for instructional materials has to go to digital content, whoa, that sent a total shockwave through the industry. The message couldn't be clearer. Adapt or you're going to get left behind.
So, how are the big 3 fighting back? Let's kick things off with the biggest of them all, Pearson. Their big bet isn't just on making, shinier digital books. Nah, they're trying to create an entire ecosystem.
So Pearson's goal is to become less like a book publisher and more like an app store. Their whole strategy is to build this one big platform where they can organize and curate the best digital content from anybody. We're talking even free, open source stuff. And then they'll use their own experts to basically give it a stamp of approval, which solves that big problem of trust for teachers.
And believe me, they are putting their money where their mouth is. They bought SchoolNet for personalized learning, they dropped a ton of cash into the Nook e-reader, but the real focus, the thing they're really excited about, is what they call born digital curriculum. So think interactive, game-based content that was designed from day one for the tablet. Get this, some of it might never even have a print version.
All right, next up, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, or HMH. Now, they're taking a completely different tack, and honestly, it's pretty fascinating. They aren't trying to build a platform. They're trying to deconstruct the textbook itself. I love this quote from their executive vice president. She literally says, "Don't refer to our curriculum as an e-textbook." To her, that word just sounds like a clunky PDF of a print book. No, they see their content as highly modular, basically a collection of tiny, powerful, and interchangeable parts. So what they're doing is slicing up their curriculum into the smallest possible teachable units. And each little unit is adaptive. What that means is it can automatically show up as a video for a kid who's a visual learner or as a game for another. The system then tracks how the student is doing and figures out exactly what they need next. It creates a truly personalized learning path for every single kid.
Okay, on to our final big player, McGraw-Hill. They're looking at the exact same landscape as the other 2, but they've come to a more cautious conclusion. Their entire strategy is about bridging the old world with the new. So McGraw-Hill's bet is pretty simple. Yeah, digital is the future for sure, but they're saying schools just aren't ready to throw out all their print books tomorrow. They believe we're going to be in a blended world for a while. So their focus isn't on some radical reinvention, but on making that transition as smooth as possible. So instead of building some huge open platform or chopping everything into tiny pieces, their focus is on their own content. Yeah, they're making it adaptive, but their key investment, their secret sauce, is in creating these really powerful data dashboards for teachers, giving them clear, actionable info on how their students are really doing. So there you have it, 3 giants placing 3 very different bets on what the future of education looks like. You've got Pearson, the platform builder, who wants to curate content from anybody. You have HMH, the deconstructor, breaking everything into these tiny adaptive pieces. And then you have McGraw-Hill, the pragmatist, focusing on its own content and giving teachers better data for this blended world.
Okay, so we've seen all the corporate strategies, but that leaves one absolutely crucial question. Do any of these plans actually line up with what teachers and school districts really, really want?
This quote from an instructional tech director out in California, man, it is blunt. He says, "What we consider as a textbook is actually dead right now. For the educators on the front lines, the debate is over. The old one-size-fits-all textbook is dead. The only real question is, what's going to replace it?" And when you actually ask them, what they want is incredibly clear. They are rejecting those big, expensive lockdown packages. What they're demanding is flexibility. They want small, modular chunks that they can mix and match from a bunch of different sources. Sound familiar? It's that exact playlist model we saw in Arizona. You know, the best analogy I've heard for what educators are dreaming of comes from Florida's Department of Education. They basically want an Amazon for educational content. Imagine a marketplace where a teacher can search for a specific topic, see all the different digital resources available, read reviews from other teachers, and then pick the absolute best one for their students. How cool would that be?
But, and this is a really important point, it's not all on the publishers. The big takeaway here is that educators can't just sit around and wait for the perfect product to show up. They need to get in there, partner with these companies, give them feedback, and actually help shape the tools that are going to define the future of learning.
So yeah, the textbook is dead, but learning materials, of course, are going to live on forever. The billion-dollar question that everyone, publishers, teachers, and students, is facing is what will it become? A curated platform, a collection of micro-lessons, or something we haven't even imagined yet? The only thing we know for sure is that the classroom of tomorrow is going to look very, very different.